Who is in your family? What attracted you to our planet? When did you first visit us? Where else have you visited? And why haven't you just landed on the White House lawn? We'll be asking all these questions and more on this week's episode of the Ask an Alien Project. Join us, won't you? Hello et bonjour, and welcome to this week's episode of the Ask an Alien Project. The aim of our project is to create a repository of the questions that we as a species would like to ask of an extraterrestrial civilization if we could sit down and have a chat with them. Not just how fast does your spaceship travel or how does it work, but the sociological and historical ramifications of contact as well. Now, you may ask, how can we study unidentified aerial phenomena, aliens, and life on extraterrestrial planets when we don't even know if these things exist? Well, you're right, we don't know if they exist. But our premise here at the Ask an Alien Project is simple. We are getting closer every day to disclosure, formal revelation that we are not alone in the universe. And when this day comes, we as a species had better be ready. So that's why we're assembling a database of as many questions we could possibly think of to ask an extraterrestrial civilization. To that end, we thought it would be helpful to group some of the themes of questions together in a logical format. So we decided we would explore some of the questions in the who, what, when, where, and why format. And just for fun, we'll throw in a couple of how questions as well. We're not just interested in how fast an alien spaceship travels or what galaxy they're from. All those things are interesting. But we want to know about what life is like with their family. Do they love? What do they do when they're not exploring planets? Where else have they visited? And what on earth is it about us that makes them keep coming back for more? So let's dive right in and start with the first series of questions that we would like to ask an alien. Who? When we say who, we want to know who are the creatures or intelligences behind these phenomena. Do they have names? What are their exact identities? Do they have personalities? Do they operate as a collective in a hive mind mentality? Or are they all unique individuals with their own wants and desires and needs? Do they have families? Do they have loved ones that they miss when they're away on their long journeys? Or are they more hatched with hundreds of other similar beings at a time? Who is responsible for the observed unidentified aerial phenomena, also known as UAP, that we've seen recently? With all of the credible and evidence-based reports we've received regarding UAPs, we can't help but notice that there are certain shapes of unknown craft that reappear on a somewhat regular basis, such as the tic-tac shaped UAP, the triangle or pyramid-shaped UAPs, the cube-shaped UAPs, or simply balls of light or strange circular glowing objects. So this begs the question, who is operating these craft either directly or remotely? Do the different shapes and styles of UAP indicate different groups of extraterrestrials? Are they operated by different factions on the same planet, such as here on Earth, where the Americans, the Japanese, the European Space Agency, Russia, China, and others all put craft into space? Or are they from different planets altogether, and we have more than one extraterrestrial species visiting us? Or could it be said that it's the same species, and yet each of these craft is for a different purpose? We have a wide variety of aircraft on this planet to accomplish different tasks that have some similar characteristics, but also wildly different performance capabilities. The same can also be said for ships. We have many ships, some of them designed for very specialized tasks. So who's behind all these different crafts? The question of who is in charge of these different craft leads to even more angles of inquiry, such as, are these individuals or clones? Are the craft alive in some manner? The next series of questions would be, what? When we're considering the question of what, the first thing people tend to think of is the details of the UAP technology. And yes, these technologies could be revolutionary to human civilization if we could replicate them. Instantaneous acceleration, some form of anti-gravity drive, low observability, and trans-medium operation. That is to say, being able to go from space to air to underwater with no apparent damage to the vessel and apparently no difficulty. What enables them to traverse such enormous distances from their homeworld to ours? What sustains them on their long voyages? What are their different modes of transportation on their own planet? But the knowledge we seek isn't limited just to the technology. We need to know what is the status of their health and what is their normal life expectancy. What is the climate like on their planet? Does it change? And most crucially of all, what is your purpose or intent? What's the driving force behind your decision to come here? What first attracted you to our planet? Was it the atomic explosions in the 1940s? Or could it be other events that piqued your curiosity? For example, at 9:04 a.m. local time on December 6, 1917, in the harbor of Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada, a French cargo ship laden with high explosives collided with a Norwegian vessel, triggering a fire and then a massive detonation. Thousands of lives were lost, and the shockwave traveled far and wide. The Halifax explosion was one of the largest artificial non-nuclear explosions in human history. An extensive comparison of 130 major explosions by Halifax historian Jay White in 1994 concluded that it remains unchallenged in overall magnitude. For many years afterwards, the Halifax explosion was the standard by which all large blasts were measured. For instance, in its report on the atomic bombing of Hiroshima, Time magazine wrote that the explosive power of the little boy atomic bomb was 7 times greater than that of the Halifax explosion. The fireball from the 1917 Halifax explosion would most certainly have produced such intense light that it would have been visible from space. And this light could have traveled 33 light years away from Earth before the infamous Roswell UFO crash incident in 1947. Could this event have been a trigger for an extraterrestrial civilization to investigate? Or was it the fireball experienced when the dinosaurs were wiped out from a meteor striking the Yucatan Peninsula in what is now Mexico, some 67 million years ago? Or were we simply observed via high-powered telescopes from a distance on an extraterrestrial planet? We've been transmitting radio signals from Earth since the 1900s and television signals since the 1930s. Perhaps they intercepted some of those communications. This leads us to questions of when. How long have you been visiting us for? Have you had contact with our ancient civilizations? Are you capable of time travel? Or do you not see time and space in the same way we do? Nearly a century ago, Albert Einstein famously predicted that time and space were not fixed and unbreakable, but instead could be warped and bent in certain circumstances. So, has the species operating these unidentified aerial phenomena learned how to warp space and time in a way that we can't yet do, or perhaps can't yet even conceive of? Perhaps when we have definitive contact with the species and we can seek answers to the greatest questions of time, such as what happens in the time after death? Do you know about the future? Can you see what will happen? Do you die? Or are you eternal? The next angle of inquiry is where. Now, the most obvious question would be, where do you come from? But that's a rather singular and limiting question in its focus. More importantly, we should ask an alien, where else have you visited? Where do you live? Such as, do you live on more than one planet? Where are there other life-sustaining planets? Or habitable megastructures? Are you from an exoplanet we know about, such as Proxima b or the TRAPPIST system? Or are you from somewhere completely different? Can you visit a black hole? And what happens when you go through it? Are there features of our galaxy that you can teach us about that we do not yet know of? Or are there places that we should avoid at all costs due to extreme danger? Can you help complete the puzzle of stellar cartography for us? That is to say, can you help fill in the gaps of our knowledge of where we are in the universe and what lies beyond our observable range? Perhaps most importantly, the question, why? Hollywood movies have often suggested that an alien civilization would want to invade us, would want to enslave us, or even worse, want to consume us. Yet we have no clear evidence of them taking any of these overt steps despite decades and decades of reports of contact. Some researchers have suggested that a likely explanation for this low contact and low impact has been that whoever is observing us is viewing us somewhat akin to a nature documentary, or as we study animals in a large zoo. If that were to be confirmed one day, there could be major social upheaval if we come to the realization that we are no longer the top species on our planet or in our galaxy. We should also ask, why did you come here instead of other planets? Or are your visits to Earth in addition to other planets you frequent? Why are you so interested in us? And if you are so interested in us, then why haven't you just landed on the White House lawn? Or in front of number 10 Downing Street? Or in the middle of Red Square in Moscow? Or perhaps the Forbidden City in Beijing? Or what about a city park in the middle of Johannesburg, South Africa? Or Rio in Brazil? Or perhaps we're simply too violent or unpredictable for you to make direct contact with us. We would also like to ask an alien, why haven't you left? Why do you stay here? Why do you keep coming here? Why don't you have what you need yet? Can't you go home? Do you not have a home planet to go back to? Are you lost? And we would be remiss if we didn't look at the question of how. This is not to say just how do you grow? How do you reproduce? How did you get here? Which are all valid questions. But more importantly, how do you view us? Like animals in a zoo, as mentioned earlier? Like pets, perhaps? Do you view us like a foreign adversary? Like a peer group who needs some guidance? Or do you view us like a threat that needs careful observation? As well, how is your society organized? Do you have different jobs? Do people specialize in doing certain tasks or endeavors? Do you have a military? Do you have a religion? Or perhaps more than one religion? Are you conscious as we understand it? Or do you have a different take on consciousness altogether? How are you created? Artificially engineered? Or are you born in a naturally evolved method? All of these factors require extensive research to help us answer these questions. It's just not good enough to know that we are not alone in the universe. We must learn every single aspect of other intelligent civilizations to truly understand our place in the universe. Speaking of research, if you're working in this field, we would like to learn from you and help you amplify your work to a broader audience. Please feel free to contact us in the comments below. Also, in addition to the usual asking for people to like and subscribe to our channel, which is a really good idea as we are just getting started, please let us know what questions you would want to ask an alien if you could sit down and have an interview with them. So thank you et merci, and we'll see you next time on the Ask an Alien Project.